Hey everyone, I'm Dante. I did a deck profile on my R deck, so you guys probably know who I am. So I won't keep it too long. But yeah, this is the deck that I got third with in the Red Riot Games event. Steve asked me to do a deck profile, so I'm happy to do that for him. And yeah, whenever you're ready to start, Steve, I can go through the equipment stuff. Cool. Yep. So I got my dash, my girl. Love me some dash. I love shooting my pistol over and over and over again. No, not cold flow. She's rainbow foil. Trying to get a cold flow from the skirmish. If anyone wants to trade me for my cold flow Katsu, I got. Let me know. Um, but I'm still working on getting the cold flow version. That would be pretty hype. But right now we just got the rainbow promo. But yeah, so we have dash, obviously, plasma pistol, because I don't know why you would run the plasma barrel shot. It just wouldn't make any sense. So obviously the pistol. Pistol is like the heart of the deck because it doesn't have a once per turn effect, so you can just keep using your induction chambers to give it go again. And shooting people a bajillion times. Two equipment that I run in basically every matchup are a Teklo Foundry Heart and the Skull Cap. They're the best two equipment. They both block for 2 and then 1. Skull Cap is dependent, obviously, on life totals and stuff like that. But for the most part, these are the two best equipment in the deck. And then, of course, you have your Achilles Accelerator, also super good. Gives you an action point, which is really helpful. Usually, I try and save this until the end of the game, or if I really need pressure, I'll go ahead and use it. But most of the time, I save it until the end, and I use it to kill my opponent. Other equipment options here are Gambler's Gloves. That's specifically for the Brute matchup, just in case they roll I don't know, let's say I have 3 items out and they roll a 6 on their Arc Smash. You're going to want a Gambler's Gloves that to at least try and give yourself a better chance. We have a Goliath Gauntlet. That's used for when you're being, I guess, more of the aggressor in the matchup. And then Iron Rock Gauntlets when you're being more defensive. And then a Visiotronic. And that is just only for the wizard matchup, basically. You would never run it otherwise. In the Runeblade matchup, you're just using the null rune effect on the Achilles Accelerator, so you don't actually need to run any other null rune equipment. You could if you want null rune 4, but I don't think it's necessary. The deck has enough tools to be able to deal with wizard. We'll just go into items, I guess. It's not really like blue, red, or blue, yellow, red. It's kind of just going to be like items, defense reactions, and then I'll probably go red, yellow, blue from there. But obviously you have your 3 induction chamber and your 3 plasma purifier. These give your weapon +1 for the turn, and these give your weapon go again. Usually in most matchups, you're guaranteed, in the main deck, I guess, you're guaranteed to have 1 of each and your starting induction chamber. And then these are kind of in the sideboard depending on which matchup you're going up against. Most of the time it'll just be these 2 induction chambers that you play. And you're just adding in plasma purifiers. The other, I guess, the extra induction chambers and plasma purifiers are only run in the brute matchup because you need as many items as you can get there, because chances are they're going to get blown up at some point. So it's important to have, I guess, as many as you can, just to deal with when they get blown up. At least you can put another one into play and keep some pressure up. And the last item is just the 1 of Teklo Core. For the Red Riot Games tourney, my thought was that I'd probably be going up against quite a few Warrior players, because everybody that I talked to said that they're going to be running Warrior. So I kind of tailored the deck towards playing against more Warriors. It's a lot of defense reactions. I would say that it's a mid-range dash deck, but there are a shit ton of defense reactions because those are a warrior's worst nightmare, and they work pretty well for me. The reason I'm only running 1 Teklo Core is because it's an item. It doesn't block for anything, and that's not that great against the warrior matchup. And I think that if this, I can't remember, but you can tell me, Steve, I don't know if you know either, but I'm pretty sure the stats got released after the tournament, and the most played deck was by a large margin warrior. But I can't remember off the top of my head. Okay, yeah, I don't know either. I think I remember seeing it somewhere, so my suspicion was right. But yeah, so to deal with the large number of warriors I assume there would be, I just ran a whole bunch of defense reactions because defense reactions are pretty good against warrior players. Now, I was not expecting that Matt Rogers warrior deck that he was playing, where he was running a bunch of twinning blades and time snaps and stuff like that. That was very different to the warriors that I was used to seeing. I was used to just seeing like wide warrior decks. That was a little different. I don't know how this deck would have fared against that because I never actually got the chance to play Matt Rogers, which was unfortunate. But at least I didn't have to get crushed on stream. So we're running 3 Fate Pristine, 3 Sink Below. These are like your standard, just good defense reactions. And then we're running 6 Unmovable, 3 yellow, and 3 red. Unmovables, pretty good. Okay. Yeah. I don't think so either. I played a Kano round 1. That was Jesse Watts. He's an Unreal Kano player. I was kind of shitting my pants when I found out it was him round 1. I was not happy about that, but I did manage to win that one, so it felt pretty good. The reason that I had to fight Jesse in round 1 is because I requested for a pod switch the day before the tournament because I wanted to play in a skirmish after my pod. And the skirmish time was at the same time that my original pod was at. And Steve warned me. He said, "You're in the same pod as Jesse Watts and Jacob Pearson." And I said, "Bring it on." which may have been the stupid thing to do, but I mean, it worked out in the end, so I'm happy I did it. Plus, then I got to play in that skirmish and increase my chances of possibly getting a cold foil dash at some point in my life. But yeah, we'll continue on here. So those are the items. I'll talk about like sideboarding and stuff. I guess after I go through all the cards in the deck. But yeah, and then the cards are pretty standard. If you've seen like Matt Rogers' Nationals deck profile, this is going to look very, very similar. Obviously, some things are different because I played a few extra defense reactions and stuff like that. But for the most part, everything's going to look pretty similar. So I'm just going to go reds, blues, and yellows. Red, yellows, and blues. And if you have any questions about any of the cards, let me know, Steve. But I think they should all be pretty straightforward. No, this is just a regular Command and Conquer. I can't afford foil. That's crazy talk. No, most of the deck is foil, just not the Majestics. I can't afford to foil out the Majestics. I'm not a baller like that. So we have Command and Conquer, High Speed Impact. These are just like your standard like boost reds, basically. Any red with boost that deals more than 3 damage, pretty good. 0 to 60, zipper hits, and then the best card in the deck, in my opinion, High Octane. When you get one of these off, it's like your super ginormous like swing the tempo turn, or just like have the tempo already and then just be beating them down even more. It almost feels not fair in a way, but feels super good when you get it off. I think that a lot of people use this card incorrectly, and they try, rather than going for like a big turn with it or setting up for a big turn, and like waiting to play it, they just get it in their hand and they play it right away. And sometimes the effect of the card is literally just draw a card rather than draw a card and hit your opponent for 17,000 damage with a whole bunch of shots from your gun. So yeah, it's the High Octanes. I mainly use them to like swing tempo in the game or go for like a final like game ender. Because chances are when you use this card, if you use it properly, you're going to get all the cards out of your opponent's hand. Basically, the way that it works is that whenever you boost, you get an action point. So your goal is to boost like 2 or 3 times to get, I guess you'd have 4 action points at the end of that, assuming that all your boosts hit. Take some counters off of your plasma purifiers to give your gun +1, and then just shoot your gun basically with your remaining resource 4 times without having to use the go again effect from your induction chambers. It also lets you, I guess, play items. If you have items in your hand and you need to play them, you have extra action points to do that. It's a good setup card and it's a good momentum swing. If you can get a good like High Octane combo near the end of the game, then that can certainly close out the game. I usually use it more towards the mid game when I have some items set up already. And when I go for my High Octane play, it's mostly to swing tempo, because usually you have to take quite a bit of damage because you're not going to be blocking the turn that you're able to do it. Ideally, you do a double high octane play, which is you really have to set up for that one. It's kind of hard to pull off, but if you're able to do it, it's a pretty unreal. Just the number of action points you get, and like the amount of like value that can come off two cards essentially. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. So I mean, unless you like get really lucky and you draw both in the same hand, that'd be pretty cool. But most of the time, yeah, it's just sitting on one in your arsenal, and then if you draw into another one with like a red boost attack or something like that, then you're usually looking pretty good. Even if you have like a blue boost attack, it doesn't really matter. As long as you have like enough resources to pay for things, you're usually going to be okay. I think that, like I said, a lot of mech players don't know how to use this card properly, and that's like one of the things when I was learning how to play the deck that I kind of struggled with was learning how to use the card. But once you get some practice in and use it a couple times and see what cards it's good with and how to like thinking of how to set up different, I guess, combos with it, the deck gets a lot better, a lot more fun to play, because then you kind of just play for this combo and just go off on your opponent basically. But yeah, continuing on, I have one Tome of Fendel. The reason that I only run one is because it only blocks for two, and I thought it was I found that it was a little bit cloggy in certain matchups. And again, I was mainly preparing for the Warrior matchup, which, as Steve said, was about 30% of the field. Which, I mean, let's say that's like a third. That's a pretty good margin. 1 out of every 3 games is going to be against a Warrior player. Probably good to prepare your deck to play against that. So just the one Tome of Fendel. Obviously, this card is really good with high octanes. If this is in your arsenal and you play a high octane, you can get an action point after you boost and then draw 2 more cards off the Tome and heal. It's pretty nuts. Ideally, I would have more of these, but again, like I said, this was tailored toward the Warrior matchup because there's just so many of those running around. The defense reactions, specifically the Fate for Scenes and the Sink Belows, also help in the Ninja matchup, which is probably one of the hardest matchups for the deck. Although after facing Dan McKay's Brute deck, I might have a different opinion on that. But anyway, so that's the reds and one of the yellows. The other yellows are just 3 Spark of Genius to search out items. Pretty good. Any card that says search your deck is kind of good. The only issue with it is that it costs. Basically, if you want to search out like an induction chamber or something like that, it's going to cost you 4 resource, which is kind of expensive. Usually, if you want to play this, you have to take quite a bit of damage. Obviously, if you can, you'd prefer to just draw into your items. But sometimes it just doesn't happen, and this is your get out of jail free card when you can't draw your items because it allows you to search. It's also pretty good if you've played a high octane this turn, you've boosted, you can play Spark of Genius. It'll use up an action point, but it'll also allow you to draw a card because the second effect is that if you've boosted, you can draw a card, which is really, really useful because it allows you to like keep your turn going, and you can put something like your Teklo Core into play if you do that, or play another item. It's pretty handy. The other yellow that you run is just 3 yellow zipper. So it gives you 1 per time you boost. So I can set up a theoretical turn for you here if you want, Steve. Mm-hmm. So yes, you can do that. You just have to boost first. So if you play a high octane and then you play, I don't know, like a 0 to 60, for example, you boost with 0 to 60, you hit the boost. So now your 0 to 60 has go again because of the boost effect. And you also get an action point from high octane. So essentially you have 2 actions for the turn. You have your current action and the extra action you've gained off high octane. Then if you play Tome from your arsenal, let's say, you draw 2 cards, you gain life, and that uses one of your actions. So you have 1 action left because you've used the action for your turn. You only have your extra action that you gained off of boosting 0 to 60. So now you have 1 action left. At that point, you can either, with the cards that you drew from Tome, let's say you get a red zipper hit, for example. You can play that, boost it again. It gets go again. So now you're still on your current action. I hope this is making sense. You're still on your current action. Yeah, so you're still on your current action. And now you get +1 from high octane again. So now you have another action in the tank, and then let's say you have like a Spark of Genius in your hand. You can play the Spark of Genius, draw another card, put your Teklo core into the arena. So you play Spark of Genius, you draw another card, you put your Teklo core into the arena, and now you're still left with one action left because that's the action that you gained off boosting with Zipper Hit. At that point, you can, if you have like a blue in your hand and all your items are loaded, you can shoot your gun, as many times as you want because you still have your action. Well, not as many times as you want, as many induction chambers as you have basically in play. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do, but these, like, obviously, like, all of this stuff kind of combos well into each other. You just have to be able to set up a turn where you see, either one or two high octanes with some of these other cards. Oh yeah, you usually when you're playing the deck, you're checking through your discard pile quite frequently to kind of get an idea of what the chances are that you're going to be drawing into the cards you need, basically, and seeing like the deck only has so many red boost cards, and that's ideally what you want to be playing with high octane. If you look through your graveyard and you see that you don't really have many red boost cards left, then your strategy might have to change a little bit to, okay, I guess I'm going to use the blue boost cards, because you can't just be waiting for 9 years to try and find one of these red boost cards if there are just none left in your deck because you've either played or blocked with them all this game. I don't know. Yeah, so the other way to set it up is not just to like leave it in your arsenal, but is to pitch efficiently. So you like pitch a high octane one turn, you pitch your red Zipper Hit the next turn, you pitch a blue after that, and then at some point near the end of the game, you're going to draw all those cards back again. Hopefully your life total's at a point where you can, if that's what you're playing for, if that's the strategy you're playing for, then your life total should be at a point where you can take damage from your opponent. And then you come back with your ginormous high octane combo at the end of the game. That essentially kills them. But yeah, so that's high octane. And then now we'll just go through the blues really quick. No worries at all, Steve. It's like I said, it's the best card in the deck in my opinion. Like card that you actually play out of your deck, not like, oh, the induction chamber is the best card in your deck. It's the best non-item, non-weapon card in your deck, in my opinion. But anyway, now we'll go to the blues. Some of these are bad, and you should just be blocking with them, mostly if you have them in your hand, or just pitching with them. And those are the following. Pour the Mold, not good. Overblast, not good. Locked and Loaded, not good. And then Magnetic Shockwave is like somewhere in the middle, where it's like okay, but also not great. If you're able to get its effect off, it's pretty good. It also just deals 4 damage, so if you're using it as like a turn finisher, just like paying 2 and swinging for 4 near the end of the game, sometimes that's enough to get the cards out of their hand. But for the most part, because these don't have boost, you kind of just want to be blocking with them if you can, or just pitching them for resource, because they're not as good as the ones with boost, obviously. And the ones with boost are Zipper Hit, Combustible Courier, Pedal to the Metal, Overloop, High Speed Impact, Throttle, and 0 to 60. Sorry, I had to mute myself and cough there. Mm-hmm. No, I side for sure. For basically every matchup. So the deck is a mid-range deck, which means that I have to be able to pivot between being defensive and being offensive. Basically against like Wizard, for example, what I do is I actually just side out I side out the majority of my, I don't know my exact sideboard. I don't have my phone or my piece of paper that I have my sideboard written on with me. But I basically just side out every card that is a defense reaction, and every card that's not a mech card. If it's not a mech card, I can't boost it, and against Wizard, I have to be as aggressive as possible, I think. So I try and boost as much as possible. The thing about Wizard though is that you're also able to block them because you have so many blues in the deck, and you have your Null Rune 3, so you're usually able to block most of their damage. But you're trying to be the aggressor in that match. Mm-hmm. Yep, you bet. That's probably the best card versus Guardian. It's literally just like a 1 turn, a pitch 3 if this is in your arsenal. and it's basically just a one card shut down their giant attack. The issue is if they have pummel, you're going to be sad, which unfortunately Jacob Pearson had like 9 of in his deck, I think, or something like that. I didn't actually look at his deck, but based on when we were just chatting in game, it sounded like he had 9 in his deck, and I don't know if he was just messing with my head or not, but it sure seemed like he had 9. Because he was always bluffing the pummel with basically, if you watch our games back, he's bluffing a pummel on almost every play he makes. It's pretty crazy. That guy was like the master of like mind manipulation. He's an awesome guy to play against, and just really really cool guy to get to talk to. But when I was playing against him, that was the most stressed I've ever been in my entire life, and not just because like, oh, it's Jacob Pearson, he's one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world. It was just like, this guy is like messing with my head so much because every single attack he makes, he's bluffing pummel, and I don't know if I have to overblock or what I have to do on this turn to make sure that like I live to see another day, basically. And then like even in our first game, if you watch our first game back, there's one turn where he double pummels Command and Conquer, I believe it was, and that literally just like I could not recover from that based on like the number of cards that I lost off that play alone, because he got 3 unmovables from me in that like one sequence, and I was never able to get momentum back for the rest of the game after that. That was basically it. That was that like sealed the game basically. I should have just done the honorable thing and scooped, but I played it out. But yeah, that was a tough one. Jacob Pearson was really good, but against Guardian, for example, when you're siding, you basically want all the defense reactions that you can get, because it just allows you to shut down their turns. So that's the unmovables, the sink belows, and the fate scenes. I have a lot of defense reaction because I planned on seeing a lot of warriors, so it also helps against Guardian, because if let's say they dominate a big attack, you can block with 1 card from hand and then flip a Fate Foreseen from Arsenal, and that's usually enough to get past the Crush effect. If it's not, then you can just use some of your equipment to help deal with that as well. Yeah, exactly. Generally, the Viscerai TKs and Blitz. Viscerai in CC is still building up like rune chants and stuff, and they're usually going to attack you for a big enough attack, usually with like a Slogism or something like that, plus the rune chant damage. So it's always helpful to still have blues and stuff to block with. But in the Viscerai matchup, I'd probably run the Fate Foreseens and the Sink Belows, but I'd probably not be running the unmovables, for example. Those don't really have a place, because I'd rather not be pitching to play an unmovable. I'd rather be pitching to stop rune chant damage. Katsu is an extremely difficult matchup for this deck if they're playing Katsu properly. I see a lot of people playing like defensive Katsu, like Ninja Turtle or whatever, but not like a good and effective Ninja Turtle. It's just like this weird like mid, like I'm offensive but also defensive Katsu deck. It's very strange, and I don't think you need to play like that against mech. Those are the matchups where it's not so hard because a lot of their like combo pieces is just they're not drawing into them. They're not putting on enough pressure to like make me like continuously block. It's just, I don't know. They're playing like this, like a very weird deck. The Katsu decks that are hard to play against are the ones that are like super duper aggressive, and don't give you a chance to breathe and are constantly putting on pressure with combo pieces and stuff like that. Those are pretty tough to play against because you have to be like very efficiently blocking the entire game, and you have to kind of slowly whittle them down. Again, that's where the 3 Sink Below and 3 Fate Foreseen come in handy. It makes the matchup manageable, basically, but it's still pretty tough just because there's so much pressure and they're constantly whittling you down with Kadachi as well. So you're kind of on a timer. It's tough, but it's doable. It's just you got to play it. You got to make sure you're playing it right. Yeah, no. Honestly, I'll tell you what. Before your tournament, I didn't mind it so much because everybody was kind of on the same brute deck, where it was more of a defensive brute deck that was running the club, and I was able to just kind of keep pressure, and I felt like I was in control of the game basically. Because even though I'm against Brute and like, yeah, they can break my items and stuff like that. I still felt like I could be the aggressor and I could keep putting the pressure on in that matchup. And even if they did break my items, at the very least, I had more items in my deck to play, basically. And then, I don't know, Dan McKay came along, and he had claws in his brute deck, which I personally had never once seen in CC in my entire life. At that point, I had barely even seen them in Blitz. I saw them like once, and it was in like what I considered, well, what the guy who was playing me considered a troll deck. He was just running the claws for no reason. So I saw them in CC, and I was like, "What the heck is this? I've never seen this in my life before." Yeah, I do recall that one, and that. But that's KO, right? Like that's not Reinar. I hadn't seen them in Reinar prior to that because people hadn't really been running that in like Blitz tournaments or anything. And I never in my life would I have ever thought that I'd see the claws in CC. So I really didn't know what I was up against. So I just tried to use my same game plan that I have against I guess like regular Reinar with the club, which is a more defensive deck, and I'm trying to be the aggressor in that matchup. But against the Claw Brew, like I don't even know. I still like I haven't played CC since your tournament, so I can't say that I have much more experience on that. But it felt pretty bad, and I don't exactly know how I would side against it. I'd have to play more matches against it, but that seemed like a really tough matchup for Dash. So I don't know. And Dan was telling me like when we were playing, he was like, "This matchup's basically impossible for you to win." So I'd have to play against it a little bit more and get an idea of like what my win conditions would end up being. But I think against Brute, you shouldn't be focusing on your items too much. Because chances are your items are going to get broken at some point. You should be focusing on like boosting attacks and dealing damage through boosting and stuff like that. Usually in games against brute players who are running like the club rather than the claws, I'd have like 15 cards or so left in my deck by the end of the game. Because the majority of the game I'm playing sort of like an aggro dash deck where I'm boosting a lot and I'm basically just trying to set up a high octane turn or even a double high octane turn to make sure that I'm able to get the max value out of the card and be able to just hit them as hard as I can on one turn and make it so that they never really have an opportunity to be able to play an Arg Smash against me after I've come out with this turn against them. But again, it's tough. It takes practice. You have to understand your matchups and where you can take damage and where you can't take damage. He did roll some sixes, but I don't even know. Honestly, I think that Dan McKay's more of like a more experienced player than I am. Like I said, I had never seen that matchup. So even if he was rolling ones, all right, maybe not if he was rolling ones, but even if he was rolling like not so great, I still think that I wouldn't have fared very well in the matchup. No, I rolled a 5 and then he rolled a 6 after. That was depressing. That was depressing. It was almost to the point where like because I had no idea what Dan's deck did, I almost would have preferred to have been fighting against Matt Rogers instead on his like crazy tall like warrior deck with twinning blades and stuff like that. I almost would have preferred to have been fighting Matt Rogers than Dan McKay, just because I had no clue what Dan McKay's deck did. At least I would have an idea of what was happening with Matt Rogers because of all the rumblings and in the Discord chats and stuff like that. My friends telling me like, "Oh, have you seen Matt's deck? He's running Twinning Blade." Stuff like that. I'm not invincible anymore, Steve. They banned Drone, and I haven't won a skirmish since. No, I'm just playing around. I haven't won a skirmish for a while, but I top most of them, and that's mainly what I'm looking for. There's no prizes for winning anyway. Next, yeah, that's true. Next tournament, when's that? Yeah, I think it's the Gamers Layer one. And that's next Saturday. Yeah, that should be next Saturday. I'm in some tournaments like throughout the week, but the next skirmish will be the Dual Kingdom one next Saturday. Yeah, that one sold out pretty quick. I think that one's Canada only, so I'll just need the familiar faces there. Yeah, they're tough to get into. Everybody wants their shot at a cold foil, Steve, because we don't have them here in New Zealand. They're like a dime a dozen, or sorry, not a dime a dozen, but like they're very common. Here they're a dime a dozen. Yeah. I would love to see this deck because I think that card is absolutely awful. So you show me the deck, Steve, because I'd love to know what the heck people are thinking when they're running that card and how they're doing well with it. There's a Dual Kingdom one there, and then the other one that I'm going to be in is on Monday, and that's the Gauntlet. That's posted in the main Discord by Rob Talarian Dropouts and Brendan Fitty Shades. That's a fun one. That's some competitive blitz action. I think this week it's worldwide as well, so I'll be in that if you want a chance to play against me or some of the New Zealand folks. I know there's a couple of New Zealand players that are registered for that one as well, so that'll be fun. But other than that, I guess again, shout out to you guys. Shout out Red Riot Games. Look at this beautiful ass playmat. Oh my god, it's so nice. And only available at RedRiotGames.ca. So you should go pick one up. You should go pick one up. I got mine, so I'm not worried anymore. But if you don't have yours, whew, I'd get on it.